Money available in all 50 states, stimulus package update, Shimeo Evergrande China real estate crisis, and rental assistance. It's all about real estate in today's stimulus package update and daily news report. A major China developer just defaulted and their real estate crisis is getting more real by the day. The Fed also says that this could spill over to the US. It may already have. I mean, have you seen housing prices recently? Not to mention rental prices. Am I right, guys? We'll talk all about that as well, including the 4 steps that you can take if you can't pay your rent and where to get rental assistance in all 50 states. Yes, all 50 states. So stay right there, you guys. Just keep watching. And speaking of, shout out to everybody who's watching right now, wherever you happen to be. This is Ron here giving you guys the latest news on the US economy, inflation, everything that's going on in Washington, D.C., and what our lawmakers are up to. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss out on future videos and updates. I cover all of the news that impacts your money. So another major Chinese developer just defaulted on their debt, and it's a pretty big deal, especially since we're talking about China here, which just so happens to be the second largest economy, second only to the United States. The real estate company is Shanghai-based Shimeo Group. Now, they failed to pay the interest and principal on a $1 billion bond that was due last weekend. It's the first missed debt repayment on a dollar bond by Shimeo, but they've also been struggling with a lot of financial stress for months. And it's really just been one crisis after another for China's real estate sector since 2020. This is back when Beijing started cracking down on excessive borrowing by developers in a bid to rein in their high debt and curb runaway housing prices. Sounds very similar to what's going on here. The problems escalated significantly last fall when Evergrande, the second largest property developer in China, began scrambling to raise cash to repay lenders. The embattled firm is China's most indebted property developer with some $300 billion in liabilities. It was labeled as a defaulter by Fitch Ratings in December. But here's the story.
Top celebrities disappear from China's internet. Chinese tech companies reel from regulation. And now Evergrande, China's biggest property developer with $300 billion in unpaid bills, teeters on the brink of collapse. For Chinese leader Xi Jinping, it's all part of the plan. Xi is rewriting the rules in the world's second largest economy. Getting rich is no longer glorious. Neither is growth at all costs. The days of unrestrained borrowing that turned Evergrande and so many companies into powerhouses are over.
There's been a decision at the very top that this buildup of reckless credit expansion is becoming a danger to China and presumably a threat to party rule.
Evergrande rode the boom of homebuyers rushing to urban cities as hundreds of millions across China were lifted out of poverty, building more than 1,000 developments in hundreds of cities. Property supercharged the economy, ballooning to account for as much as 30% of China's GDP. By 2017, Evergrande's founder Xi Jinping became Asia's richest person. Evergrande expanded into bottled water, electric cars, even pig farming. The strategy worked until China's economy cooled and Beijing started to crack down on excessive borrowing from property developers. Beijing's stated goal? To lessen economic inequality as housing prices skyrocketed and to create more sustainable growth. The stakes are too high for Beijing to let Evergrande fail. Nearly 3/4 of household wealth in China are estimated to be tied up in property. In September, footage circulated of employees, contractors, and homebuyers protesting Evergrande across China. CNN spoke to multiple buyers of Evergrande properties. One provided CNN with these videos of people demanding their money back. The buyer told CNN that more than 900 people have paid $340 million for this unfinished housing project that's been stalled since January. Angry citizens have flooded online government feedback forums. This homebuyer in Sichuan province asked where all of their hard-earned money had went, begging, please uphold justice for your people.
If you talk to people about what might cause mass protests in China, the answer you'll almost always get is it's not democracy. More and more, it's finance and it's property.
Beijing says the situation is controllable, but fears grow of a crisis in China's real estate sector that ripples into the broader economy. In recent weeks, a slew of other developers have disclosed their own struggles.
When you're decelerating or popping the property bubble, you're destroying wealth. You're going to be putting people out of business, companies out of business. It's a big deal. It's why it's never happened before.
It marks the end of China's economic model as we know it.
We are going from an area of high to medium growth to an area of low growth in China.
But Beijing is betting its top-down model will make its 1.4 billion people prosperous. The catch? ever more control in the hands of the party. Selena Wang, CNN, Tokyo.
Experts are warning Americans to be careful because this whole China crisis could be a sign of things to come for the United States here. And we may not have a stimulus check or stimulus check package to just quickly and easily bail us out this time. Now, according to a China property research firm, prices for new homes in 100 cities plunged more than 40% in the first half of the year compared to the same period last year. Authorities are trying to stem the bleeding. They have stepped up efforts to revive home sales by lowering mortgage rates and easing rules on home purchases. Some developers have even started accepting grain or garlic as down payments, even offering pigs as an incentive to buyers. Yeah, crazy times over there. Now, according to the Fed, quote, stresses in China real estate sector could strain the Chinese financial system with possible spillovers to the United States. The report also pointed out the size of China's economy and the financial system and global trade links. Quote, the nexus of the Fed's concern is that China's real estate activity is slowing, but the developers have huge debts, and some of them, like Evergrande, are diversified into other areas of the economy. Translation? China's money is basically tied together with the global economy. So this means that a slowdown in China's housing market could ultimately lead to unemployment, a drop in Chinese stocks, and deflation, which could easily spread through the global trade channels, including the United States, as China cuts its purchases of goods from other countries. Now, this concern is climbing the list of risks to U.S. financial stability. According to a Fed survey, 26 market contacts consist of representatives of broker-dealer, investment funds, political advisory firms, and universities. While persistent inflation, monetary policy tightening, and vaccine-resistant pandemic variants were of top concern for survey respondents, they were closely followed by worries about Chinese regulatory and property risks. Concerns about U.S.-China tensions came next. Home prices dropping 50%? Yikes. I don't even want to imagine what that would do to the U.S. economy here. But what do you guys think? Should our lawmakers be concerned about this? And could this somehow lead to a push for a fourth stimulus check for us? Drop me some comments down below. Let me know what you guys think about this. I mean, we're already seeing a lot of trouble in our housing market now, especially with rentals. I mean, just take a look at the numbers here. U.S. rents have increased 18% on average in the past 5 years, beating both inflation and wage growth. Now, while wages in the United States are rising, it's still at a much slower pace compared to the cost of rent. In the past year alone, wages rose about 5%, while rent prices rose by 15%. The situation has gotten to the point where people are starting to choose between putting a roof over their head or food on the table. House Democrats pointed the finger at corporate landlords for climbing rental costs. According to Representative Al Green, quote, it's these predatory purchasing from private equity firms that contributes to our nation's shortage of affordable housing, and it exacerbates the racial wealth gap, end quote. The House subcommittee found that the private companies expanded their portfolio of single-family homes by more than 75,000 properties between 2018 and 2021, and that companies tended to purchase homes in neighborhoods with a significantly larger black population than the national average. Basically, by outbidding individual buyers and paying for the homes in cash, private equity firms were responsible for unexpectedly raising rent prices and pricing people out of the housing market. A professor from Georgia Tech also said that the firms were bad landlords. Quote, these firms have exceptionally high eviction rates and profit from gentrification, end quote. So that's why experts are advocating for federal investments in housing to minimize the gap between the housing demand and the units available and the federal rent controls. Quote, profit maximization has no place in our homes. We need massive federal investment in truly affordable housing, free from harmful practices of private equity landlords, end quote. One great example is, of course, rental assistance. Just take a look at the facts here from California's $4 billion state rent relief program. Over the last 15 months, California's rent relief program delivered approximately $4 billion in financial assistance to over 340,000 renter households, essentially preventing homelessness and providing stability to over 700,000 Californians. This year's budget provides an additional $1.95 billion in emergency rental assistance for eligible participants who applied through March 31st, 2022. One LA County tenant shared their experience. Quote, this program was truly a blessing. Since the pandemic happened, I haven't had enough money for a lot of things. The program helped keep food in my refrigerator and gas in my car, end quote. And the best part of it all, it's still available. So if you're from California and you need rental assistance, they listed a phone number here of 833-687-0967. You can schedule an appointment in your preferred language. You can also check out their legal aid resources, www.lawhelpca.org, and or the tenant resources page on housingiskey.com. I'll drop some links to this contact information in the description down below. And while you're in the description down below, make sure that you get your free home warranty quote quote, link in the description down below. Also, if you happen to be renting a house, I'm pretty sure that your landlord would love to be covered by this home warranty deal. So even if you're renting, get a free home warranty quote for your landlord, and they may even discount your rent and thank you for the referral. Now, aside from that, there are some steps that you can take if you can't pay for your rent, including checking out rental assistance programs in all 50 states. Really, top of the list is to talk to your landlord, of course. As soon as you realize you won't be able to make a full rental payment, you should speak with your landlord or your property manager as soon as you can. That way, the lines of communication, they're open, and you never know. Your landlord may be willing to, come to some agreement that benefits both of you guys. Now, of course, come to the meeting prepared. Make sure you bring any documentation that shows a loss of income or the reason why you're unable to make a rent payment. It also helps if you bring some solutions or a compromise to the table. Experts usually recommend a payment plan resolution, which usually spans a month or longer, depending upon how much money is owed. There are also move-out plans where the landlord and the tenant come to some form of an agreement to help the renter break a lease early without any negative repercussions. Oh, and don't forget to get everything in writing, especially once you come to an agreement. Next on the list, find a list of organizations that can help you. Modest Needs offers grants for emergency expenses, including rent and utility bills. The Multifamily Housing Rental Assistance Program offers rental assistance support to owners of USDA financed rural rental housing or farm labor housing projects on behalf of tenants. Salvation Army also offers one-time rental assistance to people who are struggling to pay their rent. In fact, if you dial 211 and say you need help with rent, they'll put you in touch with a dozen different organizations in your area. There's also some nonprofits too that can offer rental assistance, emergency assistance to people in specific professional industries, particularly the arts, who have lost their income source or experienced financial hardship. Next step is to, of course, manage your expenses. Really, the magic word here is budgeting. As the expert explained here, quote, there are basic things like food and shelter that all of us need, but there are other things that go a little too far that have to reflect on and look inward, end quote. One way to do this is by creating a priority budget. It starts with the things that are immovable, primarily your rent and your mortgage. From there, consider other expenses like utilities, bills, food, and entertainment. Ideally, you cut back on or you minimize things toward the bottom of the list to ensure that everything at the top is paid for. You can also negotiate rates with your utility companies and other service providers. Sometimes only a 15-minute phone call could lower your bill by $25 to $30 a month. And last but certainly not least, consider rental assistance. Have you guys ever gotten rental assistance yet? If not, I highly recommend it. It may be the stimulus check that you've been looking for all this time. These programs are often administered at the state or county level, and often emergency rental assistance is provided to qualifying applicants, usually in the form of grants that do not need to be paid back. Basically, it's like a stimulus check for your rent. So like I said, no strings attached. Qualifying for rental assistance, it can vary from state to state, maybe even by county. Many states have pandemic-related assistance that requires you to demonstrate some form of financial need based on the pandemic. They alter the qualifications very frequently, so experts recommend checking with your local program to determine if you meet the eligibility requirements. Now, if you don't, you can always check back for any updates. Now, in some cases, renters apply themselves, although in other communities, the landlord actually has to submit the first application. So this brings us back to step number one, talking to your landlord or the property owner. There's also mediation options that you can look into. Experts point out how it helps to work together to figure out who is going to do what, who is going to give what paperwork, and that sort of thing, end quote. Now, how to find rental assistance programs in your state? A top-down approach works best here. Start big by looking at the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. From there, you can just search your state or your county plus emergency rental assistance, or you can call that 211 phone number that I gave you guys earlier. Now, of course, you could also just look up the list that I'm going to leave in the description or in a pinned comment down below. Always got your back, guys. But let me know if you need help with this or anything else in the comments down below. Looking forward to your questions and your requests, guys. But for now, I hope that you caught all of the information in today's stimulus package update, daily news report, the China real estate crisis possibly spilling over to the US, cover rental prices and what you can do if you can't pay your rent, and where to get rental assistance in all 50 states. Like I said, could possibly be like a stimulus check for your rent. But like I always say, guys, there's always room for some good old stimulus in our videos. And like always, I wish you guys the best. I know that you guys are smart. We will pull through this, and I will see you guys on the next video. Take care.